Hi there, everyone. Meteorologist Robert Spetter here with you with WesternPacificWeather.com, and today we're focusing in on Thailand and an improving situation there as the southwest monsoon starts to push towards the south as high pressure starts to push in from the northeast here, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a second. But overall, though, you can see all these convective clouds down here extending across Malaysia into Thailand and even parts of Singapore, getting heavy rainfall in the last couple days, and that's really this entire trough extending through this entire region here. And that's good news because really the heavily affected areas as far as flooding extend up here towards the north across much of this region right in here across the river basin there in northern Thailand. But here, just looking at the overall rainfall from the ASCAT, or excuse me, the TRIM satellite imagery here across the entire Western Pacific out in the Indian Ocean. But I do want to note you can see more clearly where the heaviest amount of rainfall has occurred with that monsoonal trough extending over in Indonesia now in parts of southern Thailand. And also you do have this area in red right in here. That's actually from Tropical Cyclone 02B that made landfall over Burma. So that's kind of the anomaly as far as the overall monsoonal trough. But really, this fantastic news here is that you're going to be seeing less and less rainfall across northern Thailand. Bad news is that with all the rainfall we have been seeing the last several months out there, a lot of this rain and a lot of this overall water levels out here continue to flow downstream towards Bangkok, where this crisis is very apparent and on the urge of just being an overall horrible situation right now. Actually, much of the flooding right now is actually taking place on the northern periphery of the downtown area, and that's mainly due to some levees up there that are really holding back a lot of the water and diverting it to the eastern and western periphery of the central district. Well, bad news with that, it looks like that those dikes are really on the verge of collapse, and a few reports of some of them have already broke. Not to the point of where you're seeing a rush of water towards the center of the city, but also just making some of the localized areas of flooding in the central district. Good news, though, is that all in all, though, those levees look like they are holding up for the time being, and really with this decrease in rainfall, that news could be improving here, and you could be seeing less of a crisis in the coming days. But that doesn't take it away from the fact that overall in Thailand, since this whole crisis began, that there has been reports of upwards of 270 deaths across the entire country. Actually, 210 deaths being reported in Cambodia as well, and all this was associated with the very strong monsoon season we've been seeing all summer and up towards this October and now into November coming up here very shortly here, and all this rainfall well above the average that we typically see out here. This is being considered a 1,000-year flooding event across the entire Thailand and Indo-China region out here. So this is why we are seeing heavy flooding across this entire area, and this is just an overall view of just one of the main intersections here in some of these street views showing the flooding extending for miles, and this is mainly just north of Bangkok in some of these rural areas and in some of the suburban areas. Not to mention some of the factory areas out here in the northern periphery of Bangkok, and that's going to cause effects globally as well. Actually noting that some of the prices of rice are going to be starting to go up, and also electronics in some of these places that make hard drives for computers and other computer items and such. Those prices may be starting to go out due to the shortage in some of these main manufacturing areas. But as already stated, though, good news is that we're seeing the trough push towards south. This is the water vapor imagery. There are some clusters of thunderstorms today in the Gulf of Thailand, but those are mainly pushing off towards the west, and really because of the northeast monsoon starting to set up here towards the north, bringing drier and colder air from the north, and that is associated with a fairly strong area of high pressure. And actually, if we zoom out and look at the Thailand Meteorological Agency's surface analysis, you can see this fairly strong area of high pressure pretty clear on here. It's actually located up here in northern China right now. Center of the pressure is actually upwards of 1,030 or 1,039 HPA, and all that is pushing towards the south. But with that, especially on the eastern periphery, you have a fairly tight gradient out here. Well, this means stronger winds across this entire area. And actually, if you look at some of these wind barbs, showing upwards of about 25 to 30 knots in some locations out here in the East China Sea. But all of that is indicating air rushing towards the south, and with that some cold air advection. And actually up here, you look up here in parts of northern China where the center of this pressure is, I'm seeing this -3, 2, -1 up here, where all that cold air is rushing towards the south. colder, drier air. It's going to start kicking up the Northeast Monsoon, and that is the dry season for Indo-China and much of that region as that high pressure pushes towards the south. So really good news with that. That's going to turn off the southwest monsoon, and one of the main things is that we could see overall the crisis situation across much of Bangkok ending in the next week, maybe the next 2 weeks. But the bad news is that since a lot of the rainfall up here in northern Thailand is still located up here, and that's all flowing downriver, that really it's going to take about 6 weeks to see a total drainage of the Bangkok area and much of Thailand. But it looks like a lot of this waters up here in the northern Thailand already starting to recede in some of those locations and starting to improve, and actually we could start getting some significant recovery efforts here in the near future if that does continue to occur, which looks to be the case for the time being. But that is all for today, everybody. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please post them in the comment box below. And also, let's continue to hope for the best out here for everybody in Thailand. The situation is not over yet, even though it does look like the overall conditions are starting to improve and become more favorable as far as the weather across the region. Still, we could see some river cresting and get a little bit higher. And also, there continues to be the loss of life and also the recovery efforts, which will be extending out into the next several months and even into the years recovering from this absolutely devastating flood across the region. But that is all for right now, everybody. Here I'm ending today's update with another slideshow, just give you a grasp of what's actually happening on the ground across much of Bangkok and much of northern Thailand. So stay safe out there, everybody, and have a great day.